Hey, let's catch up with pediatrician Dr. Brian Orr. We haven't talked to you in a while, Dr. Orr, so thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, so right off the top, Heather and I would love to know what you have learned about the coronavirus this year and of its consequences.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I've learned a ton, like all of us have. I mean, this virus, it is a serious virus. Uh, in my patients, I'm fortunate that they're not as heavily affected as the adults, but certainly the families that I work with have been affected very much. As we all know, it affects the older people more. But the number of deaths in this country, I mean, we have at this point in time, out of every 1,300 Americans have died from corona, with prospectus of potential for by April or May to have it down to 1 in every 900 Americans. So this is a huge virus. This is the one of the worst epidemics that we have ever suffered. It is, you're talking about a pandemic that is causing enough turmoil, worse than the world wars, potentially, more deaths than many wars, maybe some wars combined. It is a extremely serious issue that everybody really needs to take serious, and even more seriously now, because we are now at a bigger peak. It's sneaky. A lot of asymptomatic people spread the infection. A lot of people don't have to be heavily affected by the infection, so they can feel like they can go on their normal way. Yet they should be isolating and quarantining. We really haven't addressed it really well. In a pandemic, we should be washing our hands, covering our face, keeping distance. We should be identifying those with the illness, and we should be isolating them. That's what we should be doing. And we all need to pay new attention to this and address it very seriously in every community, everywhere.
So, Dr. Orr, we talked a lot last spring about the larger implications for children of the virus, sort of the social things, that they can't see their friends, and this was impacting different ages of kids in different ways. Could you sort of break that down, what you've seen over the past 10 months for, what are toddlers who have to see the whole world in a masked situation? What are the implications for them, right up to teens? We know teens have really suffered. But can you just sort of run through what you've seen?
Yeah, I think there is some sadness even for me to even see babies with the mask on and goggles and everything. And I wonder very much personally how much babies are being affected, even down to babies, because a lot of our growth and development is through interaction, seeing eyes, seeing faces. So I think that there's an impact, at least for a time in this period. We're going to have an impact of social interaction at all ages. That's been a big argument about trying to keep kids in school so that the socialization aspects, even beyond education aspects, are continued. So this is going to be a hard time. I think there's been some advantages, though. I mean, in many cases, this has brought family life to be kind of heralded, so that people are cooking and meals together and doing work together out of necessity, and that security is a very important value for all kids at all ages. But I think that we don't even know the amount of anxiety and social impact we're going to have yet. I think that we have to all in every family and in the community as a whole try to hold each other a little bit better and care for each other better. And you're seeing a lot of that. You are seeing a lot of that in the community. I've done work with Open Door, and you see an outpouring of compassion and care in the community. So not just with families, but beyond families, with distance, with masks on. But I think if we can all as a community show compassion and care for each other, it will be better and for all levels. But I think in the meantime, we're seeing a lot of kids with anxiety and depression, and families suffering psychologically with this. And we in my office, we've expanded how we're caring for them by having a bridging to I'm able to bridge people with a psychologist more rapidly just during this time, which has been an advantage for me in my practice.
I was going to ask, how has your practice changed in 2020? I don't know if you were doing telemedicine at all.
We're doing some, for sure, a fair amount. The practice has changed a lot. All pediatricians have been heavily affected. We've had meetings. Actually, we're having a meeting this Friday, the pediatricians in the whole area with Beverly Hospital. But pediatricians have been heavily affected. The visit rates are down across the board. We, in general, medical people have always felt almost recession-proof, and we have been. But this has really hit us in our Achilles heel because people are even afraid to come into the office. So we've had to expand on how we do things. I've seen people in their cars and come down to their cars to see them to do strep tests or to listen to kids. I've seen kids certainly in telemedicine. We've dismantled our waiting room. We don't make people wait. We get them right into a room. We're trying to get people in and out quickly. We want to keep people up with their vaccines, and a lot of people have fallen off from them. And it's happened that we've even had to try to catch people up again because during this whole time, they've let some well-child visits and vaccines wane a little bit. So it has really impacted not just my practice, but all pediatricians' practices in the area. And so we're trying to, we'll get by this. I'm not worried about us. But I think it's a matter of really trying to continue with the care you need to get. I mean, we still need to get the vaccines done. We still need to take care of asthmatics. We still need to do things for people's health, even with this pandemic. And we are doing that safely. So if I had any message to say is like, still call us, get in touch with us. We can see you and we can take care of you. And if you're worried about coming into the office, we'll see you in your car. We'll take care of you.
Mm. Well, let's talk a little bit about the vaccine. I am guessing that you will be receiving the vaccine.
Probably before many other people. I certainly hope that people in the ICU and the ERs will get it far in front of me. But yes, healthcare providers, I have certainly seen my share of people with COVID, not on a necessarily an everyday basis, but I wear PPE and there's going to be, just by the nature of where I'm working, it's not my primary duty to see COVID patients, but COVID patients inadvertently come through the office. And so, yeah, I think eventually, probably early on, I'll get the vaccine, yeah.
So do you want to talk to us about the efficacy of the vaccine and what you as a physician, you know, yes, you're a pediatrician, but you as a physician, what you think about the trials and how you feel about taking it?
So, yeah, sure. This is, all the vaccines are actually very amazing. They are a new technology. This technology has been studied for a while, but this is really the first edition of these vaccines, because they're taking actually a piece of genetic material, encasing it, and putting it in through the vaccine, so that that genetic material can be put into our cells and create the spike proteins for the coronavirus, so that then we create immunity to those spike proteins, and so that when we see the actual virus, that we will have immunity to it. It's a very ingenious way of doing these vaccines. Previously, you may take, for example, an attenuated virus like a polio virus and put it into your system, and it wouldn't cause an infection, but you become immune to it, develop antibodies to it. Or you take some proteins of that product or that infection and put it into the system and create antibodies to it. What this is doing is actually making us, our bodies, make the proteins of that virus, the coronavirus, for us to make the antibodies to it, so that when we encounter the real coronavirus, our system has already processed the spike proteins and can create antibodies to it. So it has been theorized for a while. So they created these viruses, and it's been amazing that we're talking about 94% of efficacy. So people now have gotten very excited about this form of vaccine. Now, to be fair, because of the way it's done, there are known effects to it. It can make you feel lousy for a day. Apparently the second shot, you need 2 shots. The second shot actually can make you feel like you have the flu for a day. So, but now with this, we're talking about kind of relative risks of the vaccines and this side effect of feeling lousy for a day versus 1 in 900 Americans dying from a virus. So there's no, when you talk about safety and concerns about viruses and vaccines, you have to think, okay, what's the worst that can happen? If the worst that can happen from a vaccine is that I feel lousy for a day, well, I'll take that over the worst that can happen from the infection, that I could die.
Mm.
So then, Dr. Orr, what is your response to anti-vaccination rhetoric?
Mm-hmm. Just a point about anti-vaccine rhetoric. We've had that since the Revolutionary War. During the Revolutionary War, George Washington had his troops vaccinated with smallpox. The vaccine at that time, if you think about it, was scratching somebody with smallpox and having that, then taking that same thing and scratching somebody who did not have smallpox. Very rudimentary, but if he had not done that, he would not have saved his troops from smallpox, and we would never have won the Revolutionary War. When we look at the history of vaccines, the fact that we have almost eliminated polio, we eliminated smallpox from the world. In my career, we've had meningitis almost gone to nothing in this country. I did spinal taps on hundreds of kids. I diagnosed meningitis in many kids. I've had kids die of meningitis in my practice life. But for the last 25 years, I have not even seen a case of meningitis, much less have to do a spinal tap. So when you look at the history of vaccines and what we've accomplished with vaccines, you have to start saying, we forget. We forget what we've accomplished. And so to anti-vaxxers, I say, look at the history of vaccines and look at where we've come. And so that these vaccines work, they change our lives. Coronavirus has changed our life dramatically. And we're in the midst of something that is really hurting a lot of people. Even when they recover, some people have symptoms that go on for a long time. So a vaccine is our way out of this, just like it was the way out of smallpox and the way out of polio epidemics. And we are here and now in an epidemic that the only way out is through a safe and effective vaccine. And that's what it looks like we have several editions of.
Mm. That's really interesting. You're saying basically it's a luxury to be an anti-vaxxer because we've had this incredible history of successful vaccinations, and we live in a very healthy time in pre-COVID.
Yes, I don't want to attack them in any way. I mean, but it is somewhat of a privilege to say we don't have a lot of the illness that we prevent with vaccines. It is true. And so we don't see them. A lot of people, younger pediatricians, haven't even seen chickenpox. I've seen it many, many times. I had a patient in my practice life that died of chickenpox. I had a person who got very scarred, severely scarred from chickenpox. But now we don't see it anymore because of the vaccines we have against chickenpox. So there's reasons why we do vaccines. There are reasons for it. And sometimes it's just because the virus is a nuisance like chickenpox was. Sometimes it's because chickenpox was really serious and it killed people. Sometimes it's because the illness like measles and mumps and polio, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, you name it, are very serious illnesses that kill people. And that's what we're doing these vaccines for. We're doing this vaccine because this is a terrible virus, coronavirus. It's highly contagious. A lot of people are getting it and it's killing people. We need a vaccine to stop it. And it's probably the only way we can get out of this.
Well, it's been great to talk to you again. We really appreciate it. And can we catch up with you as we move into this vaccinated time and see how everything's going?
Yes, let's see how it's going. I will say one cautionary tale is that it's early with these vaccines. It's early, right? And I've been to lectures with vaccine experts virtually, and you know, even they're saying, hey, once we get the elderly vaccinated, the first round of healthcare providers vaccinated, we're going to know a lot more before it's really being rolled out to the general public and everything. And we'll all be watching and watching what's happening with it. And hopefully it will be shown to be as effective as the first reports.
Great.
Dr. Brian Orr, pediatrician right here in Gloucester, Mass, USA. We appreciate your time and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Enjoy. Thanks.